Hey guys, it's Haley. Welcome back to my channel. I have another video where we are going to read some more scary stories. I've just really been enjoying reading scary stories. I think it's fun for me to tell you guys, and I feel like you guys have been enjoying it from what you guys have told me. I do want to quickly mention I am wearing my 4th of July makeup and my 4th of July outfit because it is the 4th of July. Well, it's past midnight, so it's technically not anymore, but it was the 4th of July, so I hope you will excuse my festive garb. I just felt like I had this kind of fun makeup on. I took off the red lip. I felt like it was a little bit distracting, but I left the rest of it, so I hope it's not too crazy to focus on what I'm actually saying. But without further ado, I am going to get started with the 2 stories we're going to be reading today. And as usual, I hope you guys will let me know down below what story you like better of the 2, what video has the best stories, or if you kind of like that I do a little bit of this type of story, a little bit of that type of story, if you like a mixture of it all. So before I continue to ramble, let's go ahead and get started. So this first story is called Skinwalkers, and in parentheses, Shudder, written by Mixlaco. I had never heard of the term skinwalker before I arrived in New Mexico. I was sent to New Mexico for work. I spent around 2 months there before heading back to Nebraska for a new assignment. I kept to myself, never really spent time around the area. Occasionally, I would hear the men working with me complain about noises at night keeping them awake. I didn't care for scary stories, and I didn't care about what was outside as long as it didn't mess with my sleep. The men seemed to enjoy the creepy stories from the locals and would kill time talking about what they heard that day. At first, it was all fun. The men would talk about paranormal sightings. Not having lived through anything like that made it intriguing. However, it wasn't until one of them didn't show up for work that made the rest of the team start taking the stories a little more seriously. One of the men was found hiding in his trailer. I didn't see him personally, but the team was told that he would be sent to a nearby hospital. One of the guys that had found him told us that he was huddled up in a corner, mumbling to himself over and over, "Hooves, eyes, it laughed. Hooves, eyes, it laughed." I felt bad for the guy. The stress from work was probably getting to him, in my opinion. However, the other men started to get worked up. One night, I went over to a local bar, but I found 3 other guys talking to the bartender about the possibility of something paranormal happening back at camp. The bartender wasn't too happy about the guys bringing up folklore they knew nothing about and occasionally left to serve others, trying his best to ignore the 3 men. One of the men started talking about skinwalkers while the rest listened closely. They had all had a few drinks in them and were getting pretty loud. Everyone at the bar started to look at them, annoyed at how obnoxious they were acting. I was looking around, thinking how stupid the men were looking, when I noticed an older man dressed in farmer's attire with some Native American print on, who was also listening closely. The man looked angry and approached the group very slowly before standing behind them, not saying a word. One of the men from my team looked at him and asked him what he wanted. The old man didn't respond and just stared at him. I stood up from my table, hoping that none of the drunks would be dumb enough to start a fight with an old man. The old man stood there looking at them while the men started taunting him. Eventually, the 3 got bored and turned their back on him. The subject of skinwalkers came up again, which is when the old man finally spoke. "Stop talking about something you know nothing about." The men turned around and stood up. I moved closer in hopes that they would see me and back off from the old man. The old man stood his ground and told them not to be disrespectful and to not meddle in things that were past their understanding. The men got irritated, and right as one was about to step closer to the old man, I finally butted in. Being somewhat their superior, the 3 men finally left, leaving me and the old man behind shaking our heads. I apologized and told them that they were just a bunch of immature kids that didn't know how to handle their alcohol when the old man told me to be careful. He said that the locals didn't talk about that subject and that talking about them would only bring unwanted attention. Not wanting to be rude, I only nodded and told the old man I'd keep an eye out on my team. I returned to camp and saw one of the men from the bar asleep on a chair in front of his trailer holding a beer. I decided to leave him out there and I went straight to bed. It must have been around 3 in the morning when I woke up to the sound of men outside yelling. I got up and walked out, still somewhat half asleep, to find everyone standing around something. I walked up only to become overwhelmed by a rotting stench and the horrific sight of the man who had been asleep with his throat slashed. He had taken his own life with a shard of the broken beer bottle. I walked away, sick to my stomach, while everyone stayed behind. I walked up a small path feeling sick and threw up everywhere. When I was finished, I was about to walk back, but I heard something behind me. When I turned around, the darkness didn't allow me to get a good look, but I was able to make out someone standing not too far from me. I thought it was perhaps one of the men who also had to excuse themselves from the crowd. However, the person was moving funny. I called out that the person identify himself, but heard no immediate response. The person was walking closer, very slowly, and his body was jerking in a funny way. He looked like a child learning how to walk. I called out once again for the person to identify himself, only this time there was a response. The voice of the person sent chills up my spine. The voice sounded inhuman, yet tried to sound as normal as possible. The body was twitching, which is what really frightened me. I started to step backwards, still deciding what I should do, when it spoke out again. The words didn't make sense, and I couldn't understand what it was trying to say. It wasn't until it walked up and the moonlight hit its face when I realized it wasn't a person at all. It wasn't it. The body was a mesh of what had been Carl, the man who I had just seen dead moments ago, and something goat-like. The skin was stretched out, and its face looked like a mask. Its legs were broken, and the feet were not feet at all. They were hooves. I ran out of there quick, looking back in hopes that it wasn't following me. Everyone was so focused on the body that they didn't notice me running into my trailer at top speed. I made a call to the local sheriff, who was already on his way after the call for Carl's death was made. I sat in my trailer not knowing what to think or say or do. I waited until the sheriff arrived before even leaving my trailer. After Carl's death, a huge lawsuit was filed against our company for not finishing the job. However, no one would go back to work after a few more sightings of something inhuman emerged. I was one of the first men who was packed up and ready to go. I visited the local bar one last time in hopes of finding the old man I had spoken to before. I found him in the same spot, sitting and drinking. Before I even said a word, he started to speak. I warned them, can't go around talking about stuff like that and not expect anything to happen. For a second, I didn't say anything. But then I decided to ask him what I really wanted to ask. Did he really take his own life? Or was it a skinwalker? The old man looked up and said in a very serious tone, "Don't talk about them. The talk will attract their attention." He got up and left without saying another word, and that was the last time I ever said the word Skinwalker out loud. So this next story is about a 911 call, and it's going to basically be me reading a transcript between the caller and the operator. So I'm gonna try to do the voices at least a little bit different so you can discern one from the other. So hopefully it works out where you can actually follow along and it doesn't sound too crazy. And without further ado, this is the story about a terrifying 911 call. Hi everyone. This is my first time posting, but no one else has been able to help me. I work the morning shift, usually, for emergency dispatch in a very small, rural county. I'm new to the area and thus the job. Last week, my closest friend was getting off the overnight and was spooked about a call they'd taken. He hadn't heard any of it up until the very end. Apparently, they were only able to record our end of the call. The caller's part was transcribed from memory by the operators and the supervisor that was on duty. They've been very quiet about all of this, but that's not uncommon for any calls we get. Because he's been unable to shake it off, my friend was able to sneak a copy of the transcript for me. Now, I'm just as weirded out. If anyone has any explanations for any of this, it would make us feel a lot better. This is the transcript. Somebody, I need help. I'm lost and homeless, and my dad is, well, I think I know where he is, but okay, calm down, and okay, my name is Natalie, my dad, his name is Salvador, and we're from Pennsylvania. We boarded a train at Union Station, Pittsburgh. Natalie, what's your emergency? Everything was okay. We were going to Cincinnati. I fell asleep and I woke up at night. We were switching trains. Daddy was mad because he said we were in Detroit and that's nowhere near Cincinnati. But the men there kept saying to sit down, to wait. I was still tired. Everyone was tired and lying down, but I couldn't fall asleep because it was so cold. Natalie, do you know where you are now? The men, they must have been worried about people being sick. They kept going around with instruments and sticking them in people's ears and mouths and had little paper cups for everyone to drink out of. My dad was arguing with one of them when they got to me. Natalie, do you know where? Natalie? They didn't explain what they were looking for, but it only took a second. When I went to drink out of the cup, do you know what was in the cup, Natalie? It was real bitter. But the train came and the man had to hurry to finish, so he didn't notice me spit half of it out. Do you have any symptoms? Do you feel? It was so cold and my teeth were chattering. We all crowded to get in and the train was so dark inside, but warm. Daddy picked me up and I just remember barely keeping my eyes open because it was so nice and warm and I was tired. I remember somebody saying, Natalie, that's a nice name. I'm Jasper. But I was already half asleep. Okay, Natalie, are you still inside the train? I woke up in the middle of the night thirsty. My throat was like cotton from that bitter stuff. I was in a really nice bed. I never had sheets like that before. There were a lot of doors. I was trying to find the bathroom, but the first one took me outside. Is that where you are now? It wasn't dark this time. It wasn't right. It was so big, much bigger than a train could be. It was huge, like I've never been to one. I've seen pictures though. It's how a ball would be, I guess. And there were tables of food on shiny metal trays and so many people. Everyone dressed nice. Men in suits, women in dresses like shimmery with veils. Natalie? Smelling the food, I realized how hungry I was. I went to the table and picked up some stick with fruit and cheese and there was a voice again. That's good. It said, I'm glad you're feeling better, Natalie. I looked up and saw a lady in a long black dress and I dropped the food because she wasn't using her mouth to talk. She just stared at me. Such a pretty name, she said. Natalie, I need to know where. I looked around and saw everyone was like that, talking without their mouths. All the laughing, so many voices, but they just stared out, blank faces. A man with a white flower in his suit pocket looked at me and I heard someone say, I have all the time in the world, Natalie. Do you know any of these? At the bar, I saw my dad. I ran over and he put his drink down, just turned to me on the stool. Don't worry, he said, you're safe here, Natalie. But he didn't move his mouth either and I started crying. Operator to the supervisor. She can't hear us. The man behind the counter was staring at me and I couldn't even tell who he was talking to, but Someone said, "Natalie's such a pretty name." Operator to supervisor. "Can we check the connection?" I ran back to our room and hid under my covers crying until I hurt all over. I thought someone would come in, but no one ever did. I just kept crying until I woke up and I realized the whole thing was a dream. Except it wasn't. I was in a bunk with hard sheets and it smelled really bad, like sweat and pee. I just sat up, scared to feel for anything in the dark. "Natalie?" Then I heard voices from outside, and I heard a scraping sound. They were opening up the train again. It was still really dark, but I could see people started coming in. I don't know why. I was just so scared of being in there. I jumped up and I pushed through the people and I ran as hard as I could to get out of the station. I know people were yelling behind me, but I didn't stop until I was near the edge of the forest. I don't know why. I just ran. My daddy was still there, but when I turned, I didn't see him, just other people yelling and running towards me. "Natalie, can you hear me?" I just kept going. I don't know for how long. Hours, I guess, until my legs burned and my arms were all scraped up. I fell asleep again in the middle of the forest, freezing. Operator to supervisor. "What do you mean we're not connected?" I kept hearing this voice and I realized I was dreaming, but I was still right there in the forest, just like when I was on the train. I got off the moss under me and started following it. It just kept calling me Natalie until I found this big hole in the ground. Nothing down there but dirt and leaves. And a girl, 8 years old I guess, "Come down here, Natalie," but her mouth didn't move. "Natalie, where are you calling from?" Ever since then, it doesn't matter where I sleep. I always dream I'm right where I am and there's someone calling me into some hole in the ground or some dark closet. They always say, "Such a pretty name," or "I have all the time in the world, Natalie." "Natalie, how are you placing this call?" I don't know where I am. I was in the forest 2 days, I think, and then I found this town, but no one's here. Not for a long time. Even the grocery store, all the fruit and the vegetables aren't just rotten, they're dirt. There's some dog and cat bones, but not many, and no people bones either. Operator to supervisor. "Not recording?" I miss my daddy so much. I try to find the train station, but I get lost in the forest and have to come back. There's no one here but me and Jasper. I'm afraid they killed Daddy. Sometimes it's him in my dreams telling me to crawl down the storm drain, but it's not Daddy, it's Jasper. His face doesn't move. Okay, Natalie, I need you to describe. I call a different city every night, but no one answers. Natalie, can you still not hear me? Natalie, I don't want to go to sleep. Natalie. Such a pretty name. Alright, you guys, so that is it for my 2 scary stories. Again, something a little bit different than in the past. Let me know if you enjoyed these or if you like a style of story from one of the past videos better, or if you did enjoy this video and these types of stories, leave me a thumbs up to let me know. If you haven't already subscribed and you enjoy my content, I would love if you subscribed and joined our little family. I love you guys so incredibly much. Still so stoked on 10,000 subscribers. Never in a million years did I ever think that that would ever happen. So I'm grateful and I love you guys with all my heart. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys will come back soon for our next video, whether it's scary stories or makeup or a Q&A or about hair or whatever it may be. I hope you're back for it. I love you guys so much and I will see you guys next time. I love you guys. Bye.